Good to be with you. I'm Tony DeCopel. The breaking news right now. The FBI opening fire, killing a man after a tense 15-hour standoff. All 10 hostages he took are free tonight. Among them, some who were tied up and strapped with what seemed to be explosive devices. What we know tonight about why he did it.
The California dream, it's alive tonight.
Also developing tonight, who will govern America's most populous state? The primary results still unsettled tonight. Millions of ballots remaining to count. The top 3 contenders holding out hope they'll move on to November. The new images just coming in from the Bahamas. The search for a missing Michigan woman. A possible murder investigation. Coast Guard divers targeting a new area of interest.
Oh my God, I can't do this.
And something we've never seen before. A woman trapped in icy floodwaters on a warm June day after a surprise hailstorm. What happened next? Plus, the NBA Finals, Knicks-Spurs Game 1 tonight, a rematch more than 25 years in the making, and what it means to the fans.
New York City is on fire. No pun intended.
And the good stuff tonight, the man they call Dr. Buckets, teacher by day, record-setting three-point shooter by night.
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News with Tony DeCopel.
And good evening. We begin tonight with much more on that hostage situation in Bakersfield, California. A 15-hour standoff is now over. All the hostages are free, and the hostage taker is dead at the hands of the FBI. Initially, the focus was on a Chase bank, but we now know this was not a bank heist, but something else entirely. The FBI saying a man with a long and violent criminal history had barricaded himself 1 floor above the bank in a school district office space. CBS News correspondent Jonathan Vigliotti joins us now with more from the scene. Jonathan, good evening.
And Tony, good evening to you. Tonight, all 10 hostages safely reunited with their families, but you have to imagine what was going on in their minds. You had some that were tied up, others that were in hiding, terrified for their lives. All the while, authorities worried about those explosives potentially going off and rocking this part of downtown.
Police say a man wearing what appeared to be an improvised explosive device barricaded himself inside the Kern County Superintendent of Schools office with 10 hostages. 5 of his captives were also strapped with additional devices.
The suspect advised he had explosives attached to his person, which our personnel could see as well. He also told law enforcement that additional explosives had been attached to some of the hostages.
The standoff began just before 1 p.m. on Tuesday. Negotiators quickly learned the suspect, identified as 41-year-old Anthony Searles Harris, had one specific demand.
At one point, he had asked for, early on, that notoriety of having FBI involved as well and FBI negotiators.
The FBI joined dozens of local and state authorities. At 3:59 p.m., one hostage was released. Nearly 5 hours later, a second hostage walked free. But investigators said negotiations stalled. The FBI took over Tuesday night, and overnight, the FBI's elite hostage rescue team breached the building and fatally shot Searles Harris and freed the remaining hostages.
We always err on the side of caution in the sense of making sure that we're taking care of our victims in this case as much as we possibly can. But it was based on the circumstances that we had at the time that FBI chose to move in and make the tactical entry.
And the FBI tells me they later recovered those devices and found no explosive materials. The motive at this hour is still unclear. We also don't know why the suspect chose to target this building in the first place, Tony.
Jonathan, thank you very much. To politics now. Yesterday, the Trump Justice Department said it was ending that $1.8 billion fund designed to pay people who can show they were politically targeted by the Biden administration. Well, today, the president would not commit to ending it, and the Justice Department confirmed this extraordinary fact. The president and his family are set to be shielded from IRS audits for taxes already filed. Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe is here with more.
Tony, good to see you. The president today called the idea of establishing what the White House calls an anti-weaponization fund, quote, the greatest thing. And under repeated questioning, he wouldn't say whether he's agreed to drop plans for the fund. The acting attorney general had told lawmakers plans for the fund would be dropped after a federal judge temporarily blocked establishing it. But fierce bipartisan opposition to the fund also appeared to spike it, as members of both parties worried it might one day be used to compensate people pardoned for crimes committed during the January 6th insurrection. Now, even with the fate of the fund unclear, the DOJ is standing by a settlement between Trump, his family, and the IRS. The tax agency has agreed to shield the president and his family from audits, settling a $10 billion lawsuit over the unauthorized release of Trump's tax returns. Democrats say this would shield the Trump family from audits of earnings over the last several decades and could help them avoid paying potentially hundreds of millions of dollars in tax penalties. Tony?
Ed, thank you very much. We turn now to your votes tonight after a big primary day across 6 states, a fresh test for President Trump as well. Going into last night, he had a perfect endorsement record in primaries this year, but that streak was broken yesterday in Iowa's race for governor. And in California, we still don't yet know the final results. Chief Correspondent Matt Gutman with the latest.
In California's primaries, voters making a statement with their ballots and their grievances, likely sending 2 Republican political newcomers, Steve Hilton and Spencer Pratt, to the November elections. CBS News projects current L.A. Mayor Karen Bass will advance to the runoff this fall. Running second is Pratt, the former reality TV star and Trump-supported candidate.
I know what people want now. They want somebody to speak the truth for their communities and fight for them.
He'd stepped into the mayoral fray, he said, after losing his home in the devastating Palisades fire, making Mayor Karen Bass his political pincushion. Supporters churned out viral AI-generated ads like this one. Councilmember Democratic Socialist Nithya Raman currently running third.
Los Angeles is the most magical city in the entire world. Win or lose.
In the gubernatorial race to replace termed-out Gavin Newsom, former Fox News host Republican Steve Hilton leads a huge pack of 61 candidates.
California means to America what America means to the world.
But it's a slim lead over former HHS Secretary Javier Becerra, with philanthropist Tom Steyer within striking distance. For voters, topping out the agenda is not a candidate, but a concern.
What is the most important issue for you?
Truly affordability.
Yep. Why?
Because it's becoming untenable at this point. My wages have not risen from $25 an hour in 10 years.
And so now California waits. There are still millions of provisional and mail-in ballots left to be counted, and typically those favor Democrats. The question here is by how much, but we won't know that until all of the votes are tallied, probably by the middle of this month, Tony.
All right, Matt, thank you very much. We turn now to the war with Iran, and for the first time since it started, the Republican-led House today passed legislation that would force President Trump to stop all military action against Iran. Still has to go to the Senate, though, and for now, as our Charlie Daggett reports from Tel Aviv, the fighting is picking up.
A passenger terminal at Kuwait's International Airport engulfed in smoke and flames with a gaping hole in the roof after an Iranian drone attack. Kuwaiti officials say at least 1 person was killed and more than 60 injured. Iran's Revolutionary Guard released this video today, claiming to show the launch of one of the heaviest barrages since a fragile ceasefire was declared in early April, aimed at U.S. military bases and regional Gulf allies. Iran's foreign minister warned any hostile act will be met with an immediate, decisive response. What sanctions and war fail to achieve won't be won with more war. The latest round of fighting began after U.S. forces fired a Hellfire missile at an oil tanker that had defied the U.S. blockade and was headed to fill up at Iran's Karg Island. U.S. military officials tell CBS News Iran fired 2 ballistic missiles toward Kuwait, 3 more toward the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. All were either intercepted or broke up, and no U.S. personnel were harmed. Despite the dramatic escalation, the Trump administration insists talks are still underway to extend the ceasefire and eventually reopen the Strait of Hormuz. But Tony, a leading Iranian official, said a return to a full-scale war seems inevitable.
Charlie, thank you very much. To the war in Ukraine now, which struck back hard today inside Russia, launching a long-range drone attack on St. Petersburg, the very city where Vladimir Putin was born. The drones, Ukraine says, flew about 600 miles before taking out an oil terminal. That in response to Russia's massive attack on Ukraine the day before, leaving more than 20 people dead. And now to this. Late yesterday, we learned that Scott Pelley, a 60 Minutes correspondent and former anchor of this very broadcast, had been fired. Here's CBS News senior national correspondent Jim Axelrod.
Tonight, we have the story of the
less than 24 hours after CBS News correspondent Scott Pelley was fired from his job on 60 Minutes. CBS News editor-in-chief Barry Weiss addressed the decision during a staff meeting this morning. Despite our attempts to engage with Scott Pelley and to find a way back, unfortunately, we weren't able to do so, and so we had to part ways. Minutes later, Pelley issued a response that his discussion with CBS News executives was hostile from the start, and that no CBS executive at any time suggested a way back. To say so now is disingenuous, and they know it. CBS News executives dispute that and say the intent of the meeting was to find a path forward. It's been a tumultuous 3 days for CBS News. On Monday, the new executive producer of 60 Minutes, Nick Bilton, called the staff together to introduce himself. Soon after the meeting started, Pelley began to question him on the recent firings of former executive producer Tanya Simon, her deputy, 2 senior staffers, and 2 60 Minutes correspondents. 60 Minutes staffers who were at the meeting say the exchange quickly grew tense. Pelley questioned the qualifications of Bilton to lead the news magazine, saying Bilton would never be welcome there, and said Weiss was, quote, murdering the show. Last night, after the meeting with executives, Bilton sent Pelley a termination letter, saying he was being fired for cause and describing his actions in the staff meeting Monday as performative, and that Pelley had no interest in contributing to the future success of the show. After Bilton's termination letter, Pelley responded, "For my part, new management has instructed me to inject falsehoods and bias into a politically sensitive story," although he did not identify which story. A CBS spokesman answered those charges. There is no political interference at CBS News, not from ownership, not from Barry Weiss. The only interference is the normal back and forth between editor and correspondent that happens in every newsroom.
I'm Scott Pelley.
And so Pelley's career at CBS News is now over. A career that took off in Dallas before moving to Washington to cover the Clinton administration.
Good evening.
And then taking over the CBS Evening News anchor desk for 6 years in 2011. But it was traveling the world for 60 Minutes, where Scott Pelley did much of his highest profile work. Work that ended after 37 years at CBS News last night. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, New York.
Jim, thank you. When I started at CBS, Scott Pelley was in this very chair, still doing a dozen stories a year for 60 Minutes. And amid all of that, meeting every new correspondent to share his view of the mission here. He believed freedom of the press, to quote Madison, was the right that guaranteed all the others. And the stakes are always that high. And that if you'd made it to CBS News, you were among the best in the world. He worked every single day to live up to that standard. And here's just some of the work you'll remember.
Scott Pelley reports on search and rescue at Ground Zero.
When the planes hit almost 25 years ago, Scott Pelley was among the first reporters down there, and he didn't leave for days.
Trying to listen to see if anybody was in there.
Wait a minute, you're digging through the debris and what you're finding are the tops of fire engines.
Right.
He covered the wars that followed in Iraq and Afghanistan, not from the studio, but from the field.
How do you measure success?
And not once, but dozens of times,
Millions of Syrians have been forced from their homes.
he traveled to hotspots all over the world.
People living where we are now have really never known peace.
Over his 2 decades at 60 Minutes, that included the genocide in Darfur and the battle for Kyiv. And when the hotspot was here at home, he covered that too, what he called the hard times generation after the Great Recession.
How long have you been living in this truck?
About 5 months.
What's that like?
It's an adventure.
There were also presidential interviews, of course, from Bush to Biden, and more than 50 Emmy Awards along the way. He was, in some ways, a man from another era, and that's not a knock. He didn't watch the competition, he said, because he knew who he was, a journalist who valued truth at all costs, and always kept alive the memory of colleagues killed in the field, a reminder that his chosen line of work could be a dangerous one. But Pelley also made one major break from the past. He changed the signs around here. Under the CBS Evening News logo, where Scott Pelley's own name would have been, he instead wrote the CBS Evening News with all of us. Well, Scott, from all of us, thank you. When we come back tonight on the broadcast, we're in the Bahamas with new developments and evidence in the search for a Michigan mom who disappeared off her boat 2 months ago. We're back with new clues tonight in the search for that Michigan mom who disappeared from her boat in the Bahamas 2 months ago. Coast Guard divers are in the water now, targeting what they say are new areas of interest. And here again is CBS News correspondent Christian Benavides following the latest from the Caribbean.
Good evening, Tony. The team of specialized Coast Guard divers and investigators have been searching the Sea of Abaco. You can see them right behind me. We watched as members of the team jumped into the water about 8 feet deep, and some investigators got onto land. This Coast Guard team arrived in the Bahamas Tuesday as they probed the disappearance of Michigan mom Lynette Hooker. Their goal, find new evidence based on GPS data gathered from an electronic device, according to a U.S. official. That data appears to be different than her husband Brian Hooker's account of his wife's disappearance. Brian Hooker was questioned by Bahamian authorities, but ultimately released, has not been charged, and denies wrongdoing. The Coast Guard team is joined by a cadaver dog from the Broward County Sheriff's Office to help identify areas of interest. CBS News has learned authorities are treating this as a possible murder investigation. The U.S. Coast Guard was back at the Abaco Inn today, Tony. That is the last place that Lynette Hooker was seen alive.
Christian, thank you. Coming up next, what caused the explosion that shook this tiny island? It was sunny and 79 in Aurora, Colorado Monday when this happened. A hailstorm on top of flash floods, giving things a wintry look out of nowhere. Some drivers didn't have a chance to react, and police were wading through ice and high water to rescue at least one stranded driver. We have a new video tonight of a major explosion this week inside a fireworks factory in the tiny Mediterranean island of Malta. The blast shaking buildings, shattering windows, and injuring 2 men working in a nearby field. That is a big explosion. The NBA Finals start tonight in San Antonio. It's the Knicks' first trip to the championships in 27 years, and long-suffering fan Spike Lee and his swag will be there in Texas for the tip-off, but they talked to CBS Mornings before the flight.
People are smiling, talking to strangers. Everybody's wearing orange and blue.
Yeah.
I mean, it is like what sports can do.
He's right. Meanwhile, San Antonio is good, but might be looking for some divine intervention to help even more. Their superfan Spurs sisters are expected to be there cheering them on. Still ahead, hoop dreams and the middle school gym teacher giving the NBA a run for its money. We're back with the good stuff. The NBA Finals tip off tonight, and you can expect a lot of scoring, but safe to say nothing will come close to what a middle school gym teacher just pulled off in Maine. They call him Dr. Buckets, and you can see why. For an entire day and night recently, all 24 hours of it, gym teacher Ryan Martin shot three-pointers inside the Saco Middle School gym, and not from the middle school line, mind you, from the NBA line. I don't know why, but this kind of thing is his thing. In 2025, he set the Guinness World Record for most three-pointers in an hour, a record he also holds for most free throws and most half-court shots. So now this naturally, and his students were there to watch on Monday as he hit three-point bucket number 11,115 just before the 24-hour mark, which breaks down to an average of 1 every 7 seconds and 0 sleep.
I mean, I don't know how many people told me that I was a little bit of a nut for doing this, but yeah, I don't know. That was very challenging, but it feels good to have done it.
That would break the old record by more than 700 shots if certified by Guinness. They say they are still reviewing it. Meantime, no friendly bets with Dr. Buckets. Don't play horse with this man. you will lose. That's another day in America. I'm Tony DeCopel. We'll see you right back here tomorrow night. Thank you for watching. Good night.